I'm going to...
Oh, it looks like Jenny has started.
see if this works.
Hi, good afternoon. We're still waiting for Jeff Scott to arrive. Unless, Jeff, you're here and you can speak. Can someone type into the chat? Can you all hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me is the question. I am speaking and...
Okay, well, now we just need our main speaker, Jeff Scott, Director of the Land Chemicals and Redevelopment Division, to be able to get on. Thank you all for joining this session. So first off, we'll have Jeff Scott, our Division Director for LCARD with EPA Region 9, introduce what we do in the division and answer your questions, and then we'll get into Trashy Jeopardy. So I hope you all are excited for a game. Ah, there's Jeff.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Excellent. I've been in and out and back and forth.
Welcome.
It's the first time I would ever say I would miss Microsoft Teams.
Well, it's all yours, and I'll just advance the slides as you need it.
Great, thanks. Is there a way to tell how many people we got out there? Or let's see if I can. Good, we've got...
Yeah,
we've got a number of people. Super. All right, gang. Well, we have a ton to cover. Ordinarily, I'd leave a little more time to have people join up, but we do have a lot to cover. I'm going to be trying to introduce you to some folks from Land Division or Land Chemicals and Redevelopment Division. Hit a few things of interest. We do have over 10 programs in this division, so I'm going to try to orient it to the ones that will be of the most interest to all of you. And I also want to leave plenty of time for Jenny Stephenson, who was just talking a second ago, to lead us through Trashy Jeopardy, which I hope you will find both enjoyable and of interest. So just to kick things off, a number of folks have acknowledged tribal ancestral land, and I think that's a great idea. And for me today, that was a little more work than normal, because usually I'm on the Ohlone tribal lands, but today I'm coming to you from a hotel room in Washington, D.C. So I am coming to you today from the land of the Anacostians here in the nation's capital. Of course, I'm always feel privileged to be here in the nation's capital and also recognize its history. So what you see here in front of you is basically our org chart, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all of it, but sometimes instead of the long-winded Land Chemicals and Redevelopment Division, we refer to the division in short as LCARD. And so let me just walk through a couple things here just to orient you. We have two major branches, the one on the left, the Pesticides, Toxics, and Brownfields branch, which tends to have most of the programs that folks are interested in. And on the right is the RCRA branch. And the RCRA program, the RCRA branch includes our RCRA program that regulates hazardous waste facilities, our PCB program, our underground tanks program. So let me just give you a little feel for a couple things. As you'll see there in that box on the left side, a vacancy for the branch chief. Our Kathy Taylor was in that position for a number of years and retired recently, and I'm happy to announce that as of this week, we selected Adrian Prisilak to be the new branch chief. Well, actually, the new assistant director, I should say. Sorry, we've tried to eliminate the other designation. And she's going to be taking over starting in a week. So we're happy to add Adrian to our senior management team. Meanwhile, let me just go through a couple of the offices there. Adrian's office, the Brownfields and Lead program are located there. And we'll be talking more about that in a few minutes. The zero waste section that deals with solid waste, recycling, sustainable materials management, pollution prevention, as well as hosts our solid waste work. We'll be talking about quite a bit, and Angela Sandoval is the manager of that. Patty Tenbrook is the manager of our Pesticides Program, and we're also spent some time on the Pesticides Program today. Over in the RCRA branch, Nicole Mutu is our assistant director there, and we have two main sections that deal with hazardous waste, the corrective action section and the permits section. Those two groups work primarily on hazardous waste sites, PCB sites, and related cleanups. Now, fortunately, in tribal country in Region 9, even though we have 148 tribes, we actually only have one facility that requires a RCRA permit from the group, and that's down at the Colorado River Indian Reservation, the Avoqua facility. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on hazardous waste because we also need to cover the underground storage tank group, which is led by Allison Fong. And so we'll spend some time on that. So that just gives you a sense of the setup. Each of these units tends to be fairly small. And so when you think about it, we really only have, generally speaking, a couple to say half a dozen people to work on any of these programs. Next slide. So let me start out talking about our Brownfields program. Really, the Brownfields program is probably familiar to most of you, but it's designed to minimize the uncertainties of contamination associated with brownfield sites. We offer contractor support for conducting site assessments and developing cleanup options and cost estimates. Unlike most of the Brownfields program, which is a competitive grant program, tribes can work directly with Region 9 to apply for funds, and applications are accepted on a rotating basis, as it says here. We have a limited amount of funding available still right now for new projects, and we're hoping to get substantial funding in FY22 for projects. And there's a number of great projects currently going on around the region, whether it's at the Elk Valley Rancheria working on tribal housing, or at the Washoe Tribe working on evaluating sites for a potential community resource center. So Lisa Hanusiak is our lead for this program and the lead contact. And in a couple slides, I'm going to have contacts for the different parts of the Brownfields program. But it's potentially a great opportunity, and we really encourage folks to reach out and work with our team to identify appropriate sites for future cleanups. Next slide, Jenny, please. Okay, the Brownfields competitive funding is the Brownfields program perhaps most of you are familiar with. It's competitive nationally. It tends to be pretty highly competitive, but we have 3 different kinds of grants, assessment grants that allow you to work with communities and figure out how, just evaluate sites, basically, as it says. Cleanup portion and a revolving loan portion that basically has sub grants to it. Currently, the window is open for competition for these grants. And with a December 1st deadline, at this point, our staff, because it's in the competitive process, can't really work with you directly on your application. However, There's another group called C-Clear, the Center for Creative Land Recycling, that is available to help tribes with applications during this period. After December 1st, our folks are definitely happy to work with you all on putting together quality applications for the Brownfields program. Next slide. And we're hopeful that we will have substantial funding come if the current proposals in the infrastructure proposals and so forth go forward. There's a lot of money out there proposed, at least, to expand the Brownfields program, which I think is going to be a great opportunity. I'm not going to go over all the different projects we have going on. Here's a sample just so you can see the geographic diversity of tribes that have been able to compete successfully for Brownfields grants. I would say that for the current window that closes December 1st, if you weren't already working with our staff to put together a really competitive grant proposal, you're not that likely to be successful, and you might want to focus on next year for the competitive grants and look at the TBA program for the other opportunity here in the short run. But it's very positive that more money hopefully will be coming available. A couple of the grants I might highlight here, though, at Susanville Rancheria, they're working on cleaning up a Gutierrez Ranch property down in Salt River. They have a proposal that they're working on to basically clean up an old RV park. And so there's a lot of variety in the kinds of grants that have been funded, and I definitely encourage people to work with our team to come up with great proposals. Next slide. The CERCLA 128 Tribal Response Program. The CERCLA program is also commonly known as the Superfund Law. And basically, as it says here in the slide, it's to establish or enhance tribal response programs. We have 16 tribes funded. The programs, some tribes focus on Superfund-like sites, some focus on more of the traditional RCRA sites. But basically, they're programs to try to do assessment, cleanup, and redevelopment. The funding guidance is being released, has been released, I should say, and is open for a 70-day period. Let me get to the next slide, which is the important slide, which is who to talk to find out more about each of these things. So Lisa Hanuzak, who's in the middle there, is our Nevada contact, but also in charge of that first set of Brownfields grants, the Targeted Brownfields Assessment Program. Jose Garcia, who's familiar to most of you in Arizona, works on the Arizona sites, as well as the Tribal Response Program grants. And Richie Donahue works primarily on the Northern California tribes, and not listed, but you can contact any of our folks and they'll hook you up with the right people. Eric Bayous and Kelly Garbach also work with tribes in California. Next slide. The Pesticides Program. So we have a number of sessions on pesticides. Primary focus of the Pesticides Program is to provide technical assistance to all tribes, as well as for a smaller number of tribes, grant funding. The grant funding generally is to develop regulatory programs for regulating applicants of pesticides or manufacturers of pesticides. So typically the small number of tribes that do receive the funding is in a case where it makes sense to develop a full-blown regulatory program. So those tribes tend to have a lot of acres in agriculture, significant populations with pesticide use, sellers or distributors, and that sort of thing. We have a few years ago, a new set of regulations was put out for what we call restricted use pesticides. These are the more toxic pesticides, more dangerous pesticides. And so there's a requirements for advanced training and so forth to be able to use restricted use pesticides. And we are working with headquarters to develop a national program to certify applicators to use restricted use pesticides, as well as a lot of work we do with the states to try to stand up their programs in that area. Worker protection, of course, is an important area, and we've working with ITCA on training for tribal inspectors and working on the inspection side. Most of the inspections and compliance work related to pesticides, virtually all of it, is actually done by our enforcement division. And then last, I just mentioned that Peter Early is our lead person on tribal pesticides issues. And he works on a work group and is always looking for help from all of you on things that would make sense in terms of supporting tribes on pesticide issues. And as I mentioned, we've got a couple of sessions during the conference here these 2 days related to pesticides. So I encourage you all to attend them as appropriate. Next slide. One area that people don't think of necessarily when they think of pesticides includes related to COVID. And one thing that came up quite a bit was the issue of disinfectants and making sure that we disinfect things to make sure we don't spread coronavirus. And so EPA has something called an INLIST, and that's where you can go to find out information on which disinfectants are actually approved to kill coronavirus and related viruses effectively. And so that's called the INLIST. It's available online. And our folks here in Region 9 actually spearheaded an effort to get information out on how to do disinfection and what's safe for tribes. And so again, here's the key contacts. Peter Early has been with us a number of years and knows an awful lot about pesticides and their interplay with the tribal needs. So definitely be sure to make friends with Peter and stay in touch to the extent you're worried about or working on pesticide issues. Next slide. Let's move over to zero waste. And Jenny Stephenson, who's helping us with the slides here today, is one of our experts in the world of recycling, solid waste management, preventing waste in the first place. And you see here we have our food recovery hierarchy, but basically it's kind of common sense, which is try to prevent food waste first. And then if you can't prevent food waste, it would be better to donate it so someone else can eat it, or animals could use it, or so forth and so forth. Next, you would turn to things like composting, and as a last resort, disposal. And so amazing amount of food waste actually exists. And we have, as everyone knows, plenty of people that don't have enough food. So this is a great focus area for the agency and multiple agencies, as well as each of us individually. And so Jenny's our expert in this area. And I think we have, it's very small on my screen, but there's the link for more information in that area. Next slide. So one of the things that I'm sure everybody has noticed is that the markets for recyclables has been problematic. People have been recycling them and they don't have anywhere to take them. And so in addition to looking for new markets for those recyclables, it's important to try to educate people on what actually can be recycled so they don't throw a bunch of garbage in with the recycling. And a lot of you know that many kinds of waste that maybe have for example, different kinds of plastics that have the recycled logo on them. Well, it turns out that realistically, the plastics with the numbers 3 through 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's really no market for them, and they don't generally end up being recycled. And so those of you that manage programs definitely can appreciate how difficult it is to get people to separate the good stuff from the bad stuff. And so what we wanted to point to here in particular that might be of assistance is once you've figured out what you want to have recycled and so forth, there's resources here to help you design for free labeling and so forth to help the community do the right thing and do it the right way. Next, electronics is another area of great concern. Of course, we all know that there's a lot of turnover in electronics, and so EPEAT is actually a it stands for the Electronic Product Environmental Assessment Tool. So I always call it EPEAT myself, but it's basically a standard for greener computers and greener electronics. And so what we really encourage you all to do, whether for the tribe as a whole or yourselves personally, is to make sure that you buy electronics with the EPEAT logo. All the major brands have EPEAT registered equipment, and the EPEAT registered equipment frequently doesn't cost any more than regular equipment. The other thing we wanted to emphasize on electronics is that when electronics are being recycled, not all recyclers are built the same. And so we encourage you to use third-party recyclers that have been certified. And so for more information in this area, our contact that you see at the bottom is John Katz. Next slide. And then in the vein of taking action to reduce waste and recycle right, it's a great step, but buying recycled products also helps. And so I just wanted to encourage all the tribes and you as individuals to take advantage of EPA's recycled product guidelines to purchase more environmentally preferable commodities. It can be all kinds of things like the things that are listed here, but we have a list that you can see, and you have opportunities to buy everything from 100% recycled paper to remanufactured toner cartridges, you name it. There's lots of opportunity to do a better job on the buying end so that you buy things that last longer and are more recyclable or reusable at the end of the life. And for more information, as you can see at the bottom of the slide, Timothy Hood, who many of you know, is definitely a national expert in this area. Next slide. Another option for buying products that are greener is the Safer Choice Program. This is, again, is another label that you can buy products either yourself or maybe have the tribe have guidelines to buy only certain kinds of products that have the Safer Choice label. Safer Choice frequently applies to cleaning products and so forth. And so it's another great opportunity for each of us to do our little part to try to send a message in the market that favors more environmentally preferable purchasing and rewards companies that do the right thing. Next slide. So here, a summary of some of our contacts as well as a couple more items. So many of you have met Jenny Stephenson or Deirdre Nuri or Robert Seaman, who works with the Arizona tribes to help on basic solid waste management issues, solid waste plans, helping with gap-funded activities related to solid waste. A small but strong team working in that area because we, of course, have a lot of demand in that area. Steve Wall works on regulatory issues and technical issues associated with actual landfills. There are a few landfill challenges out there Often it's enclosure of landfills, but sometimes new proposals come up. And Steve Wall is our expert in that area. And last, I thought I wanted to mention the pollution prevention program. Again, John Katz is the contact there. The Paula tribe, I think it was 2 years ago, received one of the pollution prevention grants. These are competed nationally, and the Paula Band helped put together a great program working with tribal businesses on reducing pollution, reducing waste, trying to save money and save energy and water, electricity, etc., and put together some nice materials that other tribes that, if you're interested in working with businesses at your tribe that could take advantage of. So there's always lots of room in these programs if you have time and energy to do more. I know we don't have a lot of money to put out there on these programs, but we definitely want to help and work together to get as much good work done as we can. Next slide. The underground storage tank program, a little different than solid waste, but really I want to say we have a really effective underground tank program. It's a very small number of people, but they've done a fabulous job. So one of the areas of work that occurs is inspection of facilities on tribal lands. You can see the numbers here. Our enforcement division takes the lead on doing those inspections and is making sure that they get visited on a minimum of every 3 years. There's plenty of activities that are required for underground tank owners to complete on their own, but inspections are important. The tank cleanup program, also known as the LUST program, one of my favorite acronyms at the EPA. We've had what I just feel like is phenomenal success over the last decade or so. Cleaning up, we had over 300 leaking underground storage tanks in tribal land. 265 of them have been cleaned up across 26 tribes, and we still have plenty of work to go, though. We have 46 remaining cleanups, and they are spread across the Navajo Nation, the Colorado River Indian tribes, and the Chemehuevi tribe, or the three tribes that still have LUST sites remaining that we're working on. But with hard work, our folks and working with the individual tribes and the companies involved have been making great progress. Last, I just mentioned we have a grant with the Navajo Nation, since they have a larger universe of tribes, to stand up a tribal tank program. You kind of would need to have enough of a universe to be doing the inspections and enforcement, and there's very few sites at most tribes, so it doesn't typically make sense. But we do have a grant to NAPIC in Nevada to help work on standing up inspection program for tanks on tribal lands there. And our manager of the tank program, again, is Allison Fong, and her contact information is right there. Next slide. I wanted to highlight a couple other key parts in the tank program. This is a great new project, the UST Finder map, which is a public map showing the locations and information about all the open and closed leaking underground storage tanks, including associated documentation for closure letters, etc., around the country. And this project was piloted here in Region 9, and the hard work of Allison Fong and the rest of the team turned that into, recently just launched as a national item. Another thing that might be of interest is, again, something that Allison and her team have been working on with coming up with a guide for planning for wildfires and their potential impact on underground storage tank and above ground storage tank sites. So with that, I think we've reached the end. That is me. We covered We only covered about half of what's in the division, not even that, but hopefully that was somewhat informative. So I think I can take a minute or two of questions before we get to the world of Trashy Jeopardy. Is that right, Jenny?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So do we have any questions out there?
So far, nothing's in the chat, but
Just about wore me out with half an hour talking by myself here. I know they want to get to, everybody wants to get to the fun part, the Trashy Jeopardy. I will say that I'm so wish that we were together in person. It would be so much better, and I look forward to seeing people. But do the best we can with what we have here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, barring no questions, I'm going to take over then. Thanks, Jeff.
I love it when you take over, Jenny. You do it.
Glad to do it. So I'm your host.
Keep that in mind, everyone.
So get ready, get your fingers warmed up, because since no one can actually unmute themselves, this will all be done through chat. And if no one responds to the question, then I have to put my boss, Jeff Scott, on the spot to come up with the answers. I know, awkward. Let's hope he knows it. I'm sure you do. So with that, we'll just get into it. And it's all just keep track for your own scoring, because I'm sure you'll win. So let's see the board. So because we don't have, since no one can actually choose the category, actually, Jeff, I'll let you choose the first category. So we have We So Trashy, Piling On, Paid For by Gap, What Does It All Mean, and I Used to Be. What should we get started with?
Well, I'm intrigued by I Used to Be.
Okay, let's start.
For 200.
I Used to Be for 200. Good one to warm up on. Let's see. Type your answers into the chat. Hopefully it's pretty obvious. What is a tire? Oh, come on, people. Nothing in the chat. Let's get going. Okay. We'll keep going. Okay. So you get it. What's a tire? There we go. Thanks, Rob. Throwing me a bone. Okay. I used to be for 400. And I will say all these are examples taken from Region 9 tribes. Maybe it's just the system slow. Oh, there we go. What are pallets? I used to be for 600. Yeah, there we go. What do you think these used to be? Or what are they coming from? Oh, I love the participation now. This is great. Okay, keep the answers coming. What is mobile home siding or roofing? We got a lot of abandoned mobile homes, and some folks are doing some pretty cool things of turning it into fencing, or making tool sheds out of it, or additional roofing covers for new mobile homes, which helps to extend their lives. So that's great. I used to be, so this is like, what recovered material do you think someone made these compost tumblers out of, which is pretty ingenious. They took material that they had on hand and they created these compost tumblers that they then take to their community events, back when we had community events, and then they take their organics for their compost tumbler. Any ideas on what this is? What are plastic water barrels and scrap wood? Yeah, polydrum, that's right. Okay, this one's a hard one, but this is our $1,000 question. So I used to be. These are carbon negative concrete pavers, and this is a demonstration project that happened several years ago on Tohoto O'odham. And these pavers are made using this recycled content material. What do you think that material is? We'll give it a couple seconds. Any guesses? Oh, Rudy for the win! Yes, what are glass bottles? Well done. Okay. So that brings us back to the board. Jeff, what column do you want next?
Let's go for paid for by GAP, always a controversial topic.
I know. And Nico Anderson, who's our GAP solid waste liaison, said he was going to be here, but I don't see him. So we'll just say everything's paid for by GAP. But really, it all depends. That was his main takeaway. It all depends. But these are all things that he's approved of for paid for by GAP. For 200, a visible, durable piece of metal notifying people of important information like what materials are accepted at the transfer station or the consequence for illegal dumping. What is this thing? Yes, a sign. So signs are a really easy thing that your GAP project officers will pretty much always say yes to. Notifying people of your trash ordinances or no illegal dumping, or just helping people better navigate their way through a transfer station or a community drop-off area for knowing where to put the right things. That's right, Rudy, Christina, Russell, nice. Jessica, love to see them coming in. Okay. Paid for by GAP, 400. This machine chops and grinds branches and woody debris into smaller pieces that can be used as mulch or in compost. And you should be safe when using it. Let's see, shredder coming in. Yeah. What is a wood chipper or a shredder? Yes, Richard. Rudy, yes. Love to see that. So I will say wood chippers are a great thing to have on hand. Oftentimes smaller ones tend to get clogged up pretty easily. So if you compare your GAP funding with another grant source of funding to buy a more expensive chipper, like $20,000-ish, that will probably serve your program better. But we see a lot of folks having Christmas tree composting, chipping events, and you can use the mulch then around for landscaping, and it also makes a great feedstock for composting programs. So paid for by GAP for 600. Staff time and supplies like a scale, gloves, trash pickers, etc., to sort a pile of waste and then gather that data to inform improvements to a waste management program. What fundable activity is this? And one that we love to help with or help you plan out as you think about doing this activity. Let's see. And we have a lot of training and resources on it as well. Okay. Yes, Rob, what is a waste stream audit? What is a waste stream audit? Waste assessment, waste characterization. It gives a really useful set of data to help you then improve your program and design it to really meet the needs of the community. Awesome, yes. I love it. I look really quick and I don't see anything, and then I just see all the answers coming in. So well done. Okay, next on, paid for by GAP. This electricity-powered machine condenses material like cardboard and aluminum cans, making it more efficient to store and transport larger loads of recyclables. this large machine that GAP has purchased, and it helps for larger, more well-established recycling programs. Ding! Richard, for the win. What is a baler? Yes. Okay, paid for by GAP for, I think we're at 1,000 now. Written work often contracted to an expert to assess, recommend, and make design suggestions on a specified waste management approach under consideration, like a transfer station, compost facility, or a hauling service. What is it that we as a tribal solid waste team or your GAP PO might often say, like before they shell out money for like the big purchases, be like, let's first get a blank. Yeah, a consultant. What I was looking for is, what is a feasibility study? So yes, usually it is a professional consultant or contractor who will then conduct the feasibility study to help you better design the solution, whether that's a transfer station or if you're looking at having your own hauling service. So any of that good stuff. Okay, I heard a request from Rob Roy to go to We So Trashy. So We So Trashy for 200. Blank, also known as MSW, refers to trash commonly generated by households, businesses, and institutions. So what does that acronym MSW stand for? And it might be something only bureaucrats talk about.
That would be me.
Huh. Rudy for the win. Rob is there right after him. Good. What is municipal solid waste? And it doesn't include wastewater, sludge, C&D, or construction, demolition, debris, and non-hazardous. So We So Trashy for 400. What is the single largest component of landfilled municipal solid waste? And this just kind of breaks my heart. And if you were listening to Jeff, you might have heard the hint for this. Let's see the answers. Okay. Close. It's an organic material. Food waste, yes. Food is our #1 landfill material, followed closely by other organics, including paperboard, and then plastics at 18%. So We So Trashy for 600. This product has the highest recycling rate. Any ideas on the product with the highest recycling rate? Yes, Jeff Scott. Let's hear your answer.
Cans.
Close. Not quite. Apparently, you're not required to recycle your beer cans, but lead acid batteries, because they are, you have to recycle them. They have the highest recycling rate, followed closely by corrugated cardboard, and your aluminum beer cans are at about a 50% recycling rate. Oh yeah, a lot of people thinking it was aluminum. Aluminum has a high market price, but really it's cardboard and lead acid batteries that are the most recycled. Okay, We So Trashy for 800. What percentage of U.S. municipal solid waste was recycled or composted in 2018? This one was hard. Even my section kind of struggled with this. Let's see. Oh, Jeff's been paying attention in all those briefings. Yes. What is 32%? Whoa, Russell, you're optimistic. No, not at 70. I wish. Rudy, 5. Yes, I think sometimes it feels like the recycling rate's at 5%. But we're at 32%, and we've been kind of in the low 30s for about the last decade. But we have a goal to hopefully increase recycling rate to 50% by 2030. So a lot of ramping up to do to achieve that goal. And we so trashy for 1,000. In 1960, the MSW generation rate was just 2.7 pounds per person per day. In 2018, the daily per person generation rate is what? So how many pounds of waste do we generate per day is the question. And Russell, no, you're not terrible. I appreciate you participating. What is 4.3? What is 6? Yeah, what is 5 pounds? So that's gone up by more than 80%. So we're at about 5 pounds now. Yeah. Well, and Don, I bet if we included more of the construction and demolition debris, it'd be way heavier too. So this is just MSW. So we have 2 more. Do we want piling on, or what does it all mean? And let me do a time check. We got a few minutes left. We're good. Jeff, what should we do?
Let's pile on.
Okay, pile on for 200. The controlled biological decomposition process of breaking down organic materials such as food waste, yard waste, paper towels, and wood chips into a soil-building substance that feeds the land. What is... Composting! And these are all pictures of composting bins on tribal lands in Region 9. So composting is a great activity. Yes, look at everyone guessing composting. You got it. So it's a great activity because unlike sometimes like it's hard to control the recycling markets, but composting, you can do it on your own land and it keeps that valuable nutrients on there. So if you couldn't tell, piling on is all about composting. So for 400, a process of using worms to break down food waste. Let's see. Get those fingers typing. Getting a delay. You guys get a lot of like my profile view. Yes. What is vermicomposting? And this picture was actually at the Urington tribal office. Hopefully your worms are still alive. I'm not sure. Oh yeah. Vermiculture, vermicomposting. Good job, y'all. Piling on for 600. When starting a small-scale composting program, it's recommended that organic products of this origin are excluded. So you don't want any of this kind of group of products in your compost. Let's see. Yeah, meat and dairy. What are animal products? Well done, Rob. Yep, keep out meat, keep out dairy. It will just be a much cleaner composting process for you. Okay, piling on, 800. Compostable plastic products that are certified by BPI or to the ASTM D6400 standard will only compost in a timely manner at this type of facility. So those compostable plastic products will not decompose in like the compost bins or your backyard composting. It really needs to be done in what type of facility? Deirdre, I'm sure your cooking is better than ending up in the compost. What is a large-scale industrial compost facility? There we go. Yep, commercial. That's right. Okay. I think that was piling on. Oh, for 1,000, our final question on composting. A feedstock mixture of 3 browns to 1 greens is a shorthand way of describing the ratio of these 2 chemical elements. What are those elements? Phosphorus and nitrogen, good idea. Hey, I appreciate you guessing.
It's not good
Carbon
seeing,
and
that's
nitrogen.
for sure.
Yeah, you need the browns and the greens, the carbon and the nitrogen. Awesome. So we're going to eat into just 5 more minutes, and we will do what does it all mean? We already finished these other 2. We just didn't get it done. So we will make this quick. So get your fastest typing fingers out. What does it all mean? I think you probably know. Lightning round. What is recyclable? Although I will say, the symbol doesn't always mean that it's actually recyclable, especially when it follows the plastic resin codes at like the bottom of a bottle. So that can be confusing, but oftentimes that symbol indicates that something is recyclable or put your recyclables in that type of container. But California is changing this with the plastic resin codes. Okay, for 400, blank, the acronym being HHW, refers to a type of waste generated by households that should be managed with special care. And collection events for this type of waste is also a very much fundable activity under GAP. And sometimes we even have grants for this. Yes, what is household hazardous waste? They're common products that you find in your household, but it's important that they require special care and separation so they don't end up in the trash when they're disposed of. That's right. Yeah, look at Rudy, Jessica, Donna, you all got it. Okay. This EPA program logo, again, already on Jeff's slides. Let's see if you remembered it. Found on cleaning products means that every ingredient meets strict safety criteria for both human health and the environment. So when you're shopping in those stores, look for this program logo. What is that program logo for? It represents the best thing ever. Yes, Jessica got it. Woohoo! Safer choice. Okay. Commonly referred to by its EPA acronym, blank quantifies the greenhouse gas emissions associated with waste reduction and management activities like source reduction, recycling, composting, and landfilling. So what EPA resource online tool can you use to brag and quantify your source reduction and recycling activities and translate that into greenhouse gas benefits? Anyone know? Close. What is GHG? It's actually what is WARM, the waste reduction model. I love this tool. If you need any help with it, reach out, epa.gov/WARM. Okay, so what does it all mean for 1,000 points? The total annual recycling and composting in the US reduces greenhouse gas emissions by more than 190 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. That's a mouthful. And this is comparable to taking this number of cars off the road. So what does 109 million metric tons look like in terms of emissions from cars? What number of cars do you think that equates to? It's hard to think because it's like we talk about 1 million metric tons of carbon, but like what does that look like? Yeah, I see some guesses, 2.3 million, 100,000. It's actually equivalent to 42 million cars. Isn't that impressive? That's what recycling and composting does. It helps save those greenhouse gas emissions. And if you want to translate your greenhouse gas activities into everyday terms that people can understand, like propane grills or cars off the road, use this equivalencies calculator. Okay, so I know you all need to get to your next session. So I will just quickly go to our last and oops, well, I already left it. I'll go to our last and final round. Let's see. I was going to jump to, well, maybe I'm already gone. Here, let me
You're still
switch
there.
this. Can you see? What do you see?
You and me.
Oh, but you don't see the slides anymore?
Nope, slide disappeared for me.
Bummer. Okay, well, maybe I better just wrap this up then. Well, that's a disappointing way to end. Here, let me just figure, here, let me do it one more time. And get ready for the final. So I know you've been tracking your score this whole time. So think about what you want to wager on this final Jeopardy round. And our final Jeopardy is, actually, let's see. Oh, hopefully you didn't see the answer. Okay, the category is material greenhouse gases. What do you see right now? Bummer.
Landfill's third largest source, but it's really small.
It is really small, isn't it? Okay, well, this was our final Jeopardy question. Landfills are the third largest source of human-related methane emissions in the US. When this material category are landfilled, they decompose in a process that produces methane and carbon dioxide. Any idea what that is? And while you work on your answer, I'm going to see if I can. Oops. Well, that's the answer. What are organics? Okay, well, thank you to all you Trashy Jeopardy champions. This has been great having your participation. Sorry for the little technical error at the end. But if you have any questions on waste and materials management, reach out to us. Here's our contact information, and no question is too trivial. So with that, thank you all so much for joining.
And thank you, Jenny, for teaching us some stuff in a more entertaining way than listening to me.
Well, it's been good. Thank you all for joining. Appreciate it. Have a good one.